There's so many preseason games. I know they do split squads, but it's a lot. It's a lot of games. One of my favorite things every year is seeing the preseason rosters with 100 different people and looking through and just picking out some of the names that we once hyped in this market and thinking, what would this person's career have been had they been drafted to literally any other organization? Any other organization picked or added to, whatever. If they play for the New York Islanders, let's just say, since Justin Bourne is on the line. Do we ever hear their name? No. The Leafs, amazing. Justin Bourne, Real Kyper and Bourne, and now, pretty impressive stuff, Leafs regional broadcast host. Oh, regularly. Mr. Television, guy writes a book. He's the true cross-platform king. He's going to be a regular contributor still on Leafs Talk, has Real Kyper and Bourne. What can't you do?
I can't make the NHL. So keep in mind when you see these 100 players who are in these split squad games. Yeah, I got in one game one time. Imagine how not good I was.
Yeah, you're right.
Only that level.
It's the injuries, right? Hey, listen. Don't spoil the book. Everyone go read Justin's book, and it'll explain in great detail why we were robbed of his career. All right? There. Could have been you.
Anyway. But it is a weird time. I'll be honest. So you mentioned doing Leaf regionals starting tomorrow, and I'm terrified of, like, they're going to be like, what'd you think? And I'll be like, I knew none of those people. I'm not sure who that person is. So.
Yeah, but this is where you just lean on being this is where you get to lean on your experience. And you just get to throw up roster cliches. Where, this would be my advice to you, that whoever pops in the game, whoever has a goal even, you just talk about your experiences trying out for the teams and saying some of these things come down to whether that goal goes in and the coaching staff noticing you or not, or the puck going wide and that snake bites you and all of a sudden no one gets to actually notice you and it actually affects the way even though in reality it's like, these guys know who's coming with each organization. Even though you know the filthy truth that none of it actually matters, But you just lean into that. I think it's pretty straightforward. No one's expecting you to know. I'm not even pulling up the lineup to read one of these names, but I don't think that people are leaning on you to go, if, the Leafs decide, if they have a full replacement level season, right? That movie, The Replacement, where all the players go on strike and they decide we're going to have to replace the entire team, then I don't think we're going to need those guys. We don't need that analysis. What was Keanu Reeves' character's name?
You know what? I'm going to tell you the sad truth. One of those movies I haven't seen that gets referenced all the time that I'm like, I should definitely watch that movie.
It's just, here's the thing, though. Sometimes those movies, what do we want to say, early 2000s on replacements, 2001, 2002 range, I feel like because we were all just watching so many movies, that the ones that were solid for us in that time frame, they stick out as a little special, where I think about that movie in particular. I think about how Gene Hackman was good and Keanu was solid and there was a funny kicker character. And now I feel like if I watch this, I would go, oh man, this is not good. I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to spoil some of these movies. Like, there are true classic movies that I get so excited for now. Like, this is one of the best things about dating, honestly, in the modern era, is when you're watching, you have a Netflix night with somebody, and then they're like, I've never seen that before. And you get to be like, yes, a reason for me to jump back into this classic movie. Like, you've never seen Seven before? Great, we're watching this.
One.
That is so great. I love nights like that. But then going back and trying to get into the, let's just call it the C+, B- tier.
I'm worried. I'm worried about my favorite movies of all time, Office Space and Super Troopers, which I haven't seen in like 5 years, and I'm worried that they're not going to have legs.
Office Space 100% does. It's a pure bona fide classic, holds up to this day.
Good.
Super Troopers, no. Super Troopers, it just doesn't. I'm sorry. I know some people are gonna get mad about that because this is just the way it is, but that was I was smoking a lot of weed in high school, and
it was university for me.
It was good, and like they took some shots, and there's some good moments in that movie, but it's like over on a whole, I remember people saying that Billy Madison wasn't good, and I would get really mad about that. And then I watched Billy Madison as an adult to be like, it's good. And like, there's good scenes in Billy Madison for sure. It's solid, but it's not what I remembered it to be. It's not like Happy Gilmore's cousin. It's like Happy Gilmore's step. Like, I don't know,
Love that.
A couple
Love
families removed from it. Anyway, all right, let's get into this. So you and I and old Sammy McKee, we got a little text group between the three of us where we like to share some ideas, share some thoughts on the Maple Leafs. You know what basically it is? It's a lot of it is a testing ground for, do we take this public, right? And then if something's good, the conversation ends there. And if it's bad, we pretty much flush the entire thing out. And this is not a overly complicated one. I think that a lot of people are reconciling with this. I brought it up a little bit with Myrtle, but there seems to be a bit of a fan apathy with this Leafs team that is a little deeper this year than I have recognized in years past. Do I think no one's going to watch? No. Do I think that people aren't going to enjoy some parts of the regular season and a Leafs win, on a Saturday night against the Vancouver Canucks like we always do? Yeah, I think that's still going to be a thing. But I am kind of curious, because you're a part of the coverage team, I'm a part of the coverage team, how we're going to spin some of this stuff throughout the year. Because last year was, hey, this is the all-in season, okay? This is the all-in season. And then it wasn't. And now we're kind of trying to do, well, this is the all-in season with Shanahan and the Shana plan. And I'm going, are we even sure of that at this point? And so, after you've cried wolf so many times, because how many all-in seasons have the Leafs had now? 3? Is this 4? It's hard to spin it that way anymore. And so if it's not an all-in season, what is it? What are we doing?
No, see, I'm not on your page here at all. Like, okay. I'm not apathetic about the season, and I'm curious to see how fans feel about it. But it does feel different. Like, the end of the Dubas era, to me, marks a new beginning. They have, two new coaches on the bench. They have a new general manager. And I think part of the complaints, I shouldn't say complaints, but part of like what makes you apathetic is you kind of knew what Dubas was about. He wanted to find these guys around the fringes who would surprise, and you knew with the deadline he'd do something. Like, you kind of knew what it was about. Like, it feels like, let's say Nylander comes out and isn't great. Like, it doesn't feel like that Dubas is going to stick with him. It's like, I don't know what Treliving is going to do with this guy if it doesn't work. And, the new blood that they brought in is not David Kampf and Pontus Holdenberg and whatever those guys. They spent some money on guys, Klingberg and Domi and Bertuzzi. Like, they actually spent some money. So I feel like there's enough newness there. They're talking about Nylander at center. It feels like there's enough there for me that this feels like not another – it is the same. I recognize it's the same core group. But to me anyway, right now, I feel like there's enough newness that I'm excited again.
I would buy that more had Treliving not – had to be essentially rushed into the organization. He wasn't even really a part of the draft. I don't think that he was going to be able to even make moves at the draft. This is a guy who came out with a staunch position after Johnny Gaudreau left the Calgary Flames and said, the one lesson I learned is that I'm never going to do that again. Like, I'm never going to let a superstar have the potential to just walk for nothing. And then he's put into a job where that is the case with William Nylander, like, immediately. And so I would buy that more, the whole Treliving angle of what is going to be his impact on the organization, if it wasn't for the overarching, are we sure this is, really his team? Are we really sure that he has a lot of autonomy? When Dubas left, one of the things that started to come out was, hey, he was frustrated by how long it would take for him to kick something up the ladder and then get the turnaround on it. And that's Kyle Dubas, who was years into the job, who had started that partnership with Brendan Shanahan, and maybe it was frayed at times a little bit more than some of us thought on the outside. And I'm sure that they are trying to empower Treliving, and I think that he's a solid general manager. I like the hire. I like some of the signings that you were talking about. I just feel as though, for the most part anyways, with Brendan Shanahan, this is now his legacy with this team. He's the one that has decided to make sure that this is all run back. He's the one that put in those phone calls to those guys the second Dubas left and went, we're running this thing back. All of you are safe. I don't really think Treliving is going to be able to take some massive swing in season, or that there's going to be some massive impact, because to me, this is like Shanahan deciding, I will be the one. I will be the one who makes the final call here because I'm the one with the most at risk.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bold take or claim or whatever to say that this guy they just brought in does not have the power to be the GM. I know we looked at Hughes in Montreal is that guy with Gorton above him. We looked with Rutherford in Vancouver as Alvin is going to be his sort of puppet guy.
Mm-hmm.
Trey Living is not Alvin or Hughes. This is not a first-time GM, a guy who's new to the NHL.
I agree.
And, well, I do think that he would have done just about anything, as most GMs would, and agree to most terms to get the Toronto Maple Leafs job. I got to believe that Shanahan hired him knowing that he's listening to him. At least I would feel like if Shanahan and Dubas had enough arguments that Shanahan had dug in on and said, I'm not giving in on XYZ, at least it gives Shanahan the fresh start to change his mind and not look like he's walking something back to Dubas. So I don't know. I see where you're coming from. It would be a surprise to me if Shanahan is the GM of this Leafs team and Tree Living's just kind of hanging out.
To be clear, I don't think that would necessarily be the case moving forward. If this was a successful year, right, and everyone is pretty secure in what their jobs are going to be going into next year, let's say the Leafs get, out of 2 rounds, they look better in the playoffs, and the plan works out, and Nylander's the third center, and they just decide to pay him, and they go, you know what, this is the core, we're going to double down on this thing, and this is what we're going to do moving forward. Or the opposite is true, where it doesn't really work out, but Shanahan is staying. I think after a full season of actually being in it, Trey Living will start to be able to have a little bit more grip on the organization. This year, with the way things transpired, where the organization, when things were done, is going, here's a contract extension, Kyle. Then the acrimony of that, then the having to fill multiple positions, having people doing jobs where you say, okay, well, now this person, okay, Wes, you're running the draft. All right, Pridham, you're kind of doing this. You're not going anywhere for now. I just think that this was we need to do things on the fly situation. We need to do things quick and easy. And I said that, I think I mentioned this the other day, but I keep wondering back, what happens with this offseason if Bertuzzi gets a contract somewhere where they gave him term, right? What does this offseason look like? Where they brought in, because you mentioned those interesting names, but a lot of it is buoyed by the fact that they ended up getting a bona fide top 6 guy who fits their lineup because the market just kind of broke perfectly for them, which good. Finally, they catch a break after all those pandemic seasons where they caught 0 breaks on the salary cap and 0 breaks with the way that they could build out their roster. But yeah, I do wonder what, that autonomy looked like this offseason, what that even ability was to do, stepping into a brand new job and say, okay, well, I guess we're trading William Nylander when you're trying to get an Austin Matthews contract done, right? There's all this big business that needs to happen. And then how that's going to operate throughout a season, especially since they had a massive overhaul at last year's deadline. I don't know. I'm not expecting too much anyways from a front office standpoint in terms of what we're talking about with the excitement around the team. I think to me that's a bigger question for next offseason once we've had everything settled from this year.
Yeah, and I get the idea that it's tough to be excited about managerial positions and coaches and stuff when it seems like the players on the ice are going to be the same.
We love that stuff here,
Yeah, we do. But you know what, though? I don't know if I talked to you about this, but I've talked a little bit with Sheldon Keefe this summer. Just, we had a relationship in the past. And, I feel like for him, it feels a little bit like a fresh start, too, where it's not that he wasn't able to make the decisions he wanted to in the past necessarily, but, it did kind of feel always tenuous when he was here. It was like, he's the guy that kind of had this, past people weren't sure about, and Dubas only brought him here, and would anyone else want him here, and all this. He's proven himself, and they've had success, and he's, I feel like this is his 5th season now, where I feel like his voice is going to, he's going to be able to be himself a little bit more comfortably with this group, and I feel like the Leafs have a chance. There's a lot of things that just make me feel like it's not that there is something of a fresh start, as much as you can have without a major overturn of players. So I'm hopeful that that's reflected in some of the way that the team carries himself. Man, it's been pretty heavy around here, and they lose a couple of games, and hopefully they recognize now that's just part of the process of getting where you're trying to go. Yeah,
I wonder what the Keefe pressure is going to feel like this year for him, because last year it was very much him out of the gate, right? When things started to go wrong, it was you got to get rid of the coach. But this year there's no obvious coach that's sitting there, right? Where people go, this is the guy that it needs to be. In fact, I think that's one of the things that genuinely did help him this offseason was not a strong field when it came to head coaching guys. And I think that what just happened with Babcock pretty much seals Quenneville's career.
Doesn't help him.
It doesn't help him. Maybe it doesn't seal it, but it makes it. I'll tell you this: Toronto Maple Leafs ain't making that move this year. That's not gonna go down. Okay, so for those of you that have that pipe dream, I would say that you can put that one to bed. There's no coach that's kind of looming over him. I don't think that people are going to be directing their ire his direction the same way. It's probably going to be more frustration with, I think, again, Shanahan will be the guy that's between the crosshairs this year. I think that he is going to be the guy that if things are not working out, fans are going to start to go, yep, nothing had changed. This is you. You're the one. We've seen enough, and it needs to be a top to bottom change. It can't be, and I don't like calling a general manager middle management. It has the little bit more of that feel with this year's operation. Anyways, you mentioned the Keefe coaching stuff. This is a great way to lead into the Nylander stuff. So I have a conspiracy theory, and I shared it a little bit. Ennis dragged it out of me yesterday. I was trying to save it for today purely, but some people have already heard this. I think that Nylander starting at center is more calculated than Sheldon thinking this is just what's good for the team. I think this is like a top-down operation where they went, all right, you're not going to play ball with the contract. You want $10+ million? Earn it. You have to, if you want to compare yourself to Austin Matthews and you want to say that this is the type of tier that you should be paid in, right? The centers. You want center money. Go play center. Go play center. Play some hard minutes. Play probably fewer minutes. No longer are you getting the cookies on the wing from Austin Matthews or the space, I should say, not the cookies, like he was just getting free stuff. I don't think anybody thinks that William Nylander is a garbage man. But yeah, no longer do you have the space. No longer do you get to kind of float through some games. Let's have Justin Bourne post some articles of the way that you play in the defensive zone, some of the clips, right? Let's have this throughout the course of regular season. Let's see you win some draws. Let's see you play some heavy minutes. Let's see you only get, what, $16.50 a night for Nylander? Maybe he's getting power play one. Maybe that's getting up there. But yeah, little 17-ish minutes for William. And playing with, let's say, I don't even know, Calle Yarncroke and Matthew Nyes, right? Let's see that line. Let's see you carry a line. Let's see you produce. So not only, it's like you're going to try to add to your center depth. That makes sense. But a big part of this is going to be, hey, we're also testing you, and we might be actually limiting your value in the market.
You know, there's two ways to look at this. I've actually talked to a couple people about this, and one of them is if you're William Nylander and they're going to play you at center, all of a sudden you might be licking your chops. You might be going, okay, so the other team's best two lines are going to go out against the Matthews line. The second best line is going to get Tavares and Marner. I'm going to get the third best line on the other team. I'm going to be a centerman. You know, if I score 40 goals as a centerman, I'm not a 10 million guy. I'm 12 and a half. And you know, the potential for him to say that, you know, to put himself in a class with those guys is real. And on the other hand here, JD, I think you make a really good point because it's not like a vindictive, let's see what you do there. It's let's see what you are.
I think it's a little vindictive. There's a 2% vindictive. Come on.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. But I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Here's your chance. Let's see what you are. If you you can drive a line and play center, we will pay you. We would be delighted to pay you. And if you can't, it's not us trying to screw you. It's us proving our point that we don't think you're a $10 million guy. So, you know, I think the best William Nylander is a motivated William Nylander, and they are putting him in a position to be the most motivated player he could be for a regular season. So I think it makes sense all around. You know, it makes sense for the roster, for him, and where they're at with him.
See, this is coming from a guy who has had a lot of success and has played the game and was on a high-level college athlete who's like, yes, I like the challenge. I want the challenge. Now you're talking to a realistic guy, a human being, okay? A loser. And let me tell you the facts, Jack, that if I'm William Nylander and I'm looking at this and I just came off of a 40-goal season, okay, I'm spinning this way and I'm going, I could feast and I could get the lines and whatever. But I think the more realistic outcome here is that you're playing down the middle. You're a guy that doesn't like to be, I don't think, held overly accountable or scrutinized. Would you say that's somewhat fair? Like, I think that the whole, hey, William Nylander's cool as a cucumber is true to a degree, but I also think that there is a level of some of this negotiation is the guy's tired of taking as much criticism as the other guys while not getting paid like the other guys. And so if I'm him and all of a sudden I am playing some of those minutes, like we remember what happened after he got taken off of Power Play 1 last year, correct?
I don't. What happened?
He kind of dogged it a bit. There was a little bit of mopey Nylander time after no Power Play 1. And it was theorized by a lot of people and had a lot of former players talking to me going, yeah, that's not a good thing to do to a guy like that right now. Not as you're trying to enter the playoff race a playoff push and go in and try to win a series. That all of a sudden, if your numbers do start to take a bit of a dip and you cannot do that job, you might feel as though you were screwed over, that you weren't given an opportunity, that they were being vindictive. I don't think it's mostly that, because to me, the smartest thing is, hey, all of a sudden we have 3 incredible centers, and you've actually figured out you can pay William Nylander because he becomes the heir apparent to John Tavares, right? That he's off the book soon, and now you go, no, this would be wonderful to find out that he's a center. If he can play center, like I think he was originally drafted to do, and you look down the middle and you say it's Matthews.
He played center when I was with the Marlies,
Yeah, that's exactly. So it's like all of a sudden if you have him and then Matthews and you have your first 2 centers, that makes things so much easier projecting your future. So I think most of this is a calculated plan with intelligence. I'm just saying that it does, to me, have the potential to go poorly with a player like Nylander in a contract year. And that's where I think that his relationship with Sheldon is going to be very curious, because the only way for this to really truly work is if he has full faith in Sheldon Keefe, and that none of this is like, hey, we're actually trying to suppress your salary. Hey, we're trying to suppress your earning potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of it, man, is just like, I don't think Willie, and they've talked, I heard Tavares had a quote about this, and Sheldon had a quote about this, about being like the right guy to kind of play in Toronto. Mm-hmm. The whole cool as a cucumber thing that you're talking about, like, a lot of this stuff for him, he just kind of shows up, man, and does his job and plays, and I am curious to know what the emotional attachment is for his. Maybe he wants this, like I know initially he did want it when he was younger. He wanted to be a centerman. So I don't know. It can go really well for him. It could go poor for him. But yeah, all I can think about these days is like, do you remember how good he was against Florida when they had nothing and they needed goals?
I also remember how bad he was against Florida in the first 2 games.
Yeah, fair. This team chasing goals and watching Nylander slice and dice to that neutral zone, like he's a special talent. And, trying to find the right spot for him and the right dollar for him. You love him at 9, you don't want him at 11. I think putting him in a position to find out what his true value is a pretty smart idea.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I just, to me, he already has a lot of leverage. He's already going to be able to make good money in free agency. I've already referenced that, to me, Chicago, with all the money that they're going to have moving forward, and how I don't think that Bedard is going to miss this year. I think that it's going to be very apparent that he's good immediately. I think I saw his goals total was 31.5, and I went, I'm taking the over on this immediately. I went, thank you, free money.
He's one of those guys who's like, he shoots it and scores, and you're like, oh, a goalie wants that one back, and then you say it for the 48th time.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
No. He's like, the reason Matthews scored that many in the first season was the release, and it's the same with Bedard. There's not going to be, this is not a normal way guys shoot. There's not a way to prepare for him. Anyway, my point here is that I think William Nylander is going to get paid regardless. I think that the Leafs, it's probably, it's a weird one, because it's always like smarter to keep the player than let them walk for free. He still probably would have been a guy that I would have preferred to keep over one of the other guys, but I think it comes down to this. Do you think that it's going to work at center?
That's a tough one. I guess no is my honest answer.
Okay. Because all of this is predicated, like when you're setting it up and going, and he wants the challenge, and if he could feast, and it's like, okay, sure, for sure. If it goes that way, then it's brilliant all around. But if it goes the way that maybe we think it could, that's where you start to wonder about the dominoes, right?
But here's why I say no. It's like it's because people think of him as a winger, including his coach now. And so anytime things go wrong with the center position, it's going to be a reevaluation of should he be a centerman. Mm-hmm. And if you reevaluated should that center be a center, every time a center messed up playing center, you'd have no centers. Mm-hmm. But it is Nylander. So it's like every time he does something coverage-wise that you don't like, it's like, boy, maybe go back to wing. Whereas, when Tavares does it or, pick a guy in the league, it's just like, well, he's a centerman, he made a mistake. So I just think eventually it's too ingrained over 8 seasons in the league or whatever it's been that this guy has become a winger. And I think he's just too easy. In the playoffs, it's tough for me to wrap my head around too. So I do think eventually they'll go back.
Yeah, playoff. That's a really, I like thinking that far ahead. Like, can we just press the
Remember
button?
he played center in Game 5 against Columbus?
I'm aware, and guess how it went? Yeah. Here's what I would say. Here's what I would guess. If they said,
the
"Hey,"
worst coaching moment of Keefe's career, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say that if you got to tell Sheldon Keefe and William Nylander, you ever see that there's like a British game show where if they both hit steal, if they both hit split, you split. If one person hits steal, you both steal. It's like, hey guys,
that's a prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah, exactly. And if they do this, but it was like, hey guys, if you both press the same button, the film gets erased, or you split the buttons and we keep the. It's like destroy the tape, gone. It's all gone. That game for both those guys, they're not. There's not one guy that's split. It's a double delete immediately. It's a very
nothing redeeming.
Quick episode for both those guys. So yeah, I'm curious to see it too. It just, to me, the second part of the conspiracy is it feels. I don't want to say gimmicky, but there is a part of me that wonders with a team like the Leafs, who does care so deeply about PR, perception, conversation around the team, if a lot of it was just, hey, this is a way to shift like a little less focus on Nylander's money in the front office onto something that's on the ice and give people something more interesting than like where Bertuzzi's going to play.
Yeah, the excitement factor is one that I know you and Sam have talked about a lot going into this season, and I'm curious to see what my boy. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I am curious to know public sentiment, like how people feel about the excitement for this team, if it is different when it's the same core guys. I don't know. I don't know if it works for other people. I personally am really excited about it.
Yeah, no, again, I will be more excited to watch the games as they're happening. I know I have the sickness in me where I just care, right? Like even with the Blue Jays after they got swept by the Rangers, and I was so upset. I was down in the dumps. Like, sports affect me way more than they should a grown man. It's not good. It's just not. It's not. Sometimes I sit there and it's affecting me that way, and I'm like, I know it's your job, but grow up. Just grow up just a little bit. Have a little bit of pride. And what did I do? The first Red Sox game, I was like, all right, hunker down. Red Sox time. Win this game. This is how they're going to do it. I'm already doing the whole, how they're going to get into the playoffs and have the pitching like sick. So, yeah, of course I'm going to be excited for the Leafs season to a degree. I just think a lot of what we do and a lot of what modern sports is goes beyond the game. It's what are the stories that you can tell. And for me, when I'm projecting outward, it's hard for me to see a lot of what the Leaf stories are going to be right now that are going to be truly engaging in the regular season if they have success, which I think they're going to have. I think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to win a lot of games. And I keep looking at it and saying, all right, what is it going to be? Well, that brings us to the next thing, the blue line. So
I know
everyone's talking about how the pieces don't fit in the forward groups, but I keep looking at it and saying, well, there's a lot of talent there. So ultimately, figure it out. You've got a much deeper forward group than I think any of us expected the Leafs to have going into the season. Is that fair?
Yes, I do.
Way deeper. Fair. Like, we all thought that Matthew Nyes was going to be on the first line, and now we're like, is he the third line left winger? Is he first line left winger? Like, where does he fit into this piece after having no left wingers other than Zach Hyman for the long tenure of this franchise this core? Now I'm looking at the blue line, though, and Treliving calls them underrated, and I keep looking at it on paper and saying, wait, Mark Giordano's still there as like a core guy. In fact, I feel as though he has to kill penalties for this team. What are your feelings on the blue line right now? Overrated, underrated, properly rated?
I feel like rated very differently depending on where we are in the season. Like, I don't hate them Game 8 in Anaheim this year. I don't hate them Game 27.
Against the Ducks? Boy,
no, but Tampa Bay, whoever.
Fine,
I don't hate them early in the season here. They got puck movers. They got the kind of guys who make a couple of plays. Like Brody and Riley, solid pair. McCabe and Klingberg, both of them can do good things. Liljegren and Giordano, whatever. You get to the playoffs, I don't want that as my third pair. I don't want McCabe and Klingberg together. Like, I think they have time to make the changes over the course of the season, but I do think that they need at least 2 to 3 new bodies for this to be a decor that can win multiple playoff round. So I don't hate their decor today, but I can see myself hating it come April.
I don't know how Giordano is going to hold up. I don't know how Brody's going to hold up, frankly, after the way that he looked in the postseason last year. I think you're spot on, though. In the regular season, for a team where Connor Timmins looked really good at times, it'll mostly be fine. Like, they're too talented. They're too deep. I actually think that one of the more, like, underrated stories maybe going into the season is that, Boston's taking a big step back. I don't like Tampa right now, especially with their captain coming out and being pissed off in negotiations with the team, them being older. Like, some of the teams underneath them feel like they've taken a step, but no one's making me terrified. The Red Wings, you think the Red Wings are going to be better than the Leafs this year? Like, you think that, the Sens are going to take that leap? We already did the Sens thing. Actually, the Sens are in a great spot where it's the post-hype year where they got all the hype, and now this year, I think they're going to be a lot better, but even still, it's like they're not better than the Leafs. I don't think that they will be better than the Leafs. But they're going to rack up regular season points. They're going to be a great regular season team. They know how to do this. But you're right. I think that is going to tie all these things together, right? The front office, the Nylander piece, the blue line, the potential for conflict between a player and a coach or some type of is that I feel like a lot of the season is going to come down to the trade deadline or how they address that blue line at some point. Because I just don't think that you can walk into the playoffs with this group of 6 and say, we think we're fine here. Like, we think that this is going to be all right. After what you saw last season, this is worse. Like, their best guy, other than Morgan Riley, walked out the door in Luke Schenn. And maybe you can hit on another guy like that. Maybe it's not as drastic as it feels today. But, yeah, I feel like there's real potential that the playoff blue line ends up having 2 different guys than what the regular season blue line is going to have. We're going to have all these conversations about how maybe they're fine, how we overrated how bad they're going to be, blah, 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 blah. And then we're going to get to the deadline, and then that's where we get to kind of see the Trey Living move.
Buddy, all I got to say is listening to the assessment of the decor and all that is Connor Timmins, 2 years, $1.1 million per. What the hell was that? It's just, what are we going to do with that deal as the Toronto Maple Leafs? Klingberg's going to run the power play. What's Timmins going to do? They got to trade him tomorrow.
I always hate going in on Timmins. The internet loves him.
I like Timmins fine, but it's the contract. My God.
Yeah, it was a weird one. That was I like you. You played for my junior team. Here's money. That's
pretty much it.
Yeah, that's felt like Dubas was a booster, at a big time college program. Like, hey, why don't you check the mailbox? There's a little gift for you in there. It's like,
name, image, and likeness deal here for you.
Yeah, exactly. I do wonder how they're going to get that thing done. And with the draft picks they have, and the salary space they have, the roster that they have in terms of what would have to go in and what would have to go out. I would say if there was like one thing about this offseason that could end up biting them in the ass if things don't break the right way, and considering the prices of blue liners come deadline time, and I think Schenn ended up going for a third, so maybe this will turn out to be an old takes exposed, but yeah, it feels like they left themselves a little light there. And there's not even the guy, there's not even the 7th D this time around where you go, okay, you could squint and this person could come up and help, right? There's no Rasmus Sandin or Liljegren from a year ago where you're wondering. Like, it does feel like Liljegren needs to take a big step, or you need a massive bounce back season from one of, like Klingberg needs to be amazing, or like we think McCabe's going to take it. I think we know what he is, right? Brody needs to just stay level. Just feels like a lot on Klingberg
McCabe
or
being
Liljegren.
A lot better, man. I do think McCabe could have a year where he's like, all right, I've seen playoff hockey. I've been in Toronto. Like, he could get comfortable and be better. Maybe Simon Benoit becomes an NHL guy. But they need to add. They definitely, that's one place that they still need some work.
Okay, we only have a couple minutes here, so this will be shorter. But I did ask you yesterday in the text, what is the thing that you are most curious about right now during camp? Like, we've already talked about Nylander. We've talked about the blue line. Is there something else that we missed?
I am curious with Nyes. I love the idea that he came in at 6'3", 217, this year, such a big body. What kind of impact does he have? Everyone's talking about the new guys. This guy looked like one of their best forwards when healthy last season. So curious to see what kind of role they give him and how comfortable he sees early in the year. Like, is he a Calder a contender for them this season, or does it take a little bit more time? He's a guy I'm eager to see. And then I guess we'll see if Nick Robertson can be something else, if he can find some other gear, but not as thrilled about that. I also want to see 27-year-old Bobby McMahon, who I still think's way better than other people. So anyway.
Yeah, I feel like Bobby McMahon, this is my quick read on him, is one of those dudes where it's like, it just might be, he might just get hurt. He might just
know that has been the tendency.
Yeah, he might just be a finds a way to get hurt guy. And when you see him, you go, I could see how this goes, but then he can never string, 5 games together. And so you're like, all right, this doesn't work. And by the way, I put too much stake into the Robertson thing last year. I'm not doing it again. I fully was like, you can't send him down. This is a mistake. Let him start the year. And now I'm just, I'm done. The Nyes one is really good though. I think he's probably. They've done a good job of sheltering him from the narrative and the role at the same time, which is kind of wonderful for him. Something I haven't thought too much about. Anyways,
the offseason broke really well for him, for sure.
100% it did. Maybe better than anybody else on the team other than Matthews getting all that money. We got to run. I'm really happy that you're on the broadcast. I'm a huge fan. I think that you guys are going to do a great job this year. I look forward to talking to you, bugging you, and then, hopefully the odd appearance on Leafs Talk too. Thanks, buddy.
Would love it, buddy. Thanks so much. Talk
See you,
to
pal.
soon.
There goes Justin Bourne. That was a good one. The Nyes one is a good one. I'm done with the Robertson thing, though. I'm not doing that anymore. If he does it, great. Then I'll talk about it. But I'm not doing the whole, what is Nick Robertson going to do at camp thing anymore? No. I think he's a fresh start guy. He could really use a fresh start. Anyways, let's go into the weekend. It's Friday. Everybody go enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week.